moving to oneness. Nourishing curiosity. Embracing differences. Becoming one.
You sometimes think you don't fit, but you do, because you're the light for many others out there. Welcome everyone, I'm Meilin, your host of the Moving to Oneness podcast, and I have a fascinating man with me, guest, who lives now in New York, and really, for me, embodies being himself, bringing his thoughts, his ideas into life, and tried out many things to really bring then out this essence that has been with him since he's a young boy. So please welcome with me, Thomas Johnson. Hello, Thomas. How are you?
I'm well, Meilin. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Yeah, we were setting an intention before, which I do with every guest for the episode. And the word courage arose. And for me, a person with courage is often the person who really tries out what is within herself, what is within himself. And if you, for myself, you embody that. Speak to that a little bit of how you go inward, or how you started to go inward to pull out what you desire to live.
Yeah, I would say, just because you have courage, that doesn't mean you don't have fear, right? Courage is pretty much just taking the step forward despite your fear. So all my life I've always felt like I had to prove myself for the most part, right? But once I started to move forward despite my fears, opportunities started to open up. Like for instance, I used to have a huge phobia of speaking in public. When I was younger, I used to stutter, I used to mutter my words. And in my family, we used to go to church every Sunday, and sometimes the kids used to go up to recite recitation, and I used to start shaking like a leaf, right? But despite that, I decided to work on that, and even when I have my keynote speeches and have conversations, there's still a little bit of the phobia there, but despite that, I know that my purpose is greater than the fear. So by going inward and focusing on the outcome, it helps to propel you further, because once you focus on the fear, that's going to become debilitating. It's going to pull you down. But once you think about why am I here? What is my reason, my purpose? Now you have a single focus, and you're able to channel all that energy into that thought process. So like I said, courage is not the absence of fear, it's getting past despite the fear, it's going a step further.
That's very, very beautiful. And I would like to extend that out a little further, what a purpose is for you. So I believe, Thomas, sometimes a purpose is not just what kind of job I do. I think each of us, we're just such beautiful light beings that are here to brighten up the world and to brighten up another person in our relationship to them. And so we are now here on this planet really to bring out something new. And I love that that came out of you right away. So what is the deeper meaning of your purpose? What was it in that moment that you would speak? I know, because I think that's something that is in you since a child. You can feel that you will speak later in your life. I bet you had that. There was something why you decided to go even further in trying, and even if you stutter to say and show the world you stutter and that you didn't care. There was something that you brought out. So what was that for you?
You know what? So I've always been the person that had a lot to share, right? A lot to say. But at times, even though I had a lot to share and a lot to say, I couldn't articulate my words properly without me, like I said, stuttering and muttering my words. So sometimes it will come out in a way where you couldn't fully understand. And because I had so much to share, I knew I had to work on that. You know, I had to work on how I spoke, work on being intentional. Because I'm also very passionate. So imagine being passionate and you have so much to say, it comes out like clutter, right?
Yeah.
So learning how to slow down and be more intentional and focus on really focus on taking my time. Because the goal is for people to listen to understand, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm coming to you and I'm being extremely passionate and very eager and my words are coming out or cluster, I'm not getting to my goal. I'm not getting my words to you in a way where you're able to receive it. So in order for me to do that, I had to work on myself, you know? And when I mentioned me being passionate and me having a lot to say, I've lived many lives, right? I've been through a civil war. I've seen wealth, I've seen poverty, I've seen chaos. So the way I look at the world is a bit different from most. So I look at things from a more empathetic standpoint instead of being quick to judge. So with that
Beautiful.
mindset, I'm able to navigate the world in a way that's very unique compared to most.
That's what I love about you, and because I think more of us have to share that. You have seen so much, experience enough, and when you were speaking about the words should sink in and should be understood when you speak, that you shows me that you really have the intention of letting people feel what you're speaking about. So then that means it comes with an experience. You're speaking from something you have lived and you want to pass on. And that, I think, is a very beautiful thing to have as, I don't even want to say the word speaker, but you're bringing your wisdom to people so they can learn from it or see themselves, parts of them, in your life and feel better.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a person just being there and just giving you a word of encouragement or just saying one or few words for the next person to resonate, get a better understanding. And sometimes it depends on how those words are shared, right? And also how the person is positioning the wordings. Because for instance, if two people are arguing, right?
Yeah.
One person is irate, next person is irate, they're not going to get to each other. But if one person decides to listen, all right, listen and to hear the next person, it's a better communication because now you're able to listen to that person and listen to understand, opposed to trying to respond because you feel that, you know, this is like a fighting match. So it's about being intentional. And this is something that I had to learn over the years too, you know. So everything I'm sharing right now is from experiences, you know, my personal experiences, things that I've studied and I've also applied because I love to study and I love to experiment. I love to experiment. and once you put yourself in these different situations and you've learned the lessons from these different situations, it's your responsibility to share it. It's your responsibility to share it. You can't hold it to yourself, you know. So that's my mindset, you know, and I believe that's my purpose in this world because I've been through a lot. I have a lot to share, and my goal is just to, you know, provide that value.
So first of all, the way of listening, right? It's an art to be present. So it's not an art. It really is our natural way. We got moved out of it a little way, I think.
There you
And
go.
it depends also on which culture we're in or grown up in, right? And then also, what kind of parents did you have, or where did you grow up? Did you have to bring your word in because the others were, you had to shoot? Or did you have people that really listened to you and gave you the value of being happy to be in your presence? Right? Does someone really want to be with you? And I think time is so precious nowadays. It moves, maybe because I'm getting older. But there's also another movement that when two people come together, right? Something new is being created. New thoughts come out, new ideas. And that we cherish that. And we can grow together in that moment, have new insights, that it's igniting, enjoyable. We have to have fun. I think otherwise, why do I otherwise talk with someone or be in someone's presence? And I love that you said we can just look at each other and sit next to each other, because there's so many other ways how we communicate, right, Thomas?
Yes, indeed.
We sit in the sun together and you can feel, I just spoke this morning about enlightened speaking. A friend of mine said, Meilin, speak about that. I said, whoops, and I would have never given it the topic. But it's right, because we're bringing out so much light, but the light comes, feeds, first of all, also our words, as we just said, the experience that we bring, the exchange. And please share about your culture as well, where you've born and what nourished you. Later we'll talk about that, but also the light that comes out in a conversation that we send out from this area right here, from our chest, from our heart, with our eyes. We speak with our eyes. It's the fastest way to communicate, or as a healer way, right? It's the fastest way to touch someone, and the other person already feels that presence. So then the words become more like a blanket if we let that do. And that's
It becomes
all
alive.
about you. Yeah. So what was it? You grew up in Liberia and came over to the US then. In the Liberian culture, how do people listen? How were you taught from there to be in presence of others when there wasn't a war, but in the tight family structure?
So the way I grew up was a bit different, because after my mother and my father had myself, had me and my sister, Doris, they came to the States shortly afterwards, right? And they left us with our grandmother. At the time, she was very well off, so it made sense because they were young adults in their early 20s. So, but I've always been around community. So my grandmother had a nice big compound, a lot of property, and we had a lot of cousins in the house, a lot of relatives. So there's always movement. There's always movement. And I grew up with my cousins. So it's myself, my sister Doris, my cousin Duke, my other older cousins. And we were free spirited. We played around the compound. We played with dirt. We ran around. We did what kids were supposed to do, which is play outside and not inside, compared to the US. And I was always a very adventurous child. I was fearless. I knew no fear. For instance, I taught myself how to ride a bike with one pedal, right? A bike that was bigger than me. And I remember the time when I was trying to learn how to ride a bike. I fell so many times, but I kept on getting up. And by the time I had mastered riding a bike, I was doing tricks, right? So I've always had this fearless. And also the reason I was able to embody that was because of the encouragement of my grandmother, my older cousins, and my uncles. They always encouraged me. Even when I acted up, I would get chastised, but my grandmother always make sure I understood why she chastised me and showed me so much love afterwards. And it was to the point where I was no longer mad at her after she spanked me, right? From acting up, right? Because the way she loved on me, So that right there was a very important lesson, But when I went to the States, it was completely different. From being like a lovely environment, now I'm in survival. Now I'm a bit older. I'm in a different environment, right? I'm going to school and I can't hardly articulate myself. Now I'm getting into fights with kids. So I went through different experiences, but all my experiences made me who I am right now because it allowed me to get a better understanding of how people operate, right? It helped me to understand human behavior and even to be intentional because the majority of how we communicate is through our body language, not only through how we speak, through our body language. Like you mentioned before, being intentional, right? Your eyes draw people in, how you speak, the way you pour out your energy. So I had to learn that because I wasn't able to articulate myself fully at an early age. But after going through all my experiences, everything accumulated and came together like a puzzle and made me who I am right now. So like I said, with the Liberian culture, that was the first part of the puzzle. But then going through different experiences as I grew up, as a child, as a adolescent, as a teenager, as a young adult, and as an adult, all those lessons kind of swirl up in this pot to make me who I am today. And I would never dismiss any of the lessons, even the bad ones, even the negative experiences, because those negative experiences also allowed me to grow into the man I am today.
And you're very interesting. And yeah, that's very beautiful for the audience to really hear that it makes us also interesting, right? If we would all be the same and finding out oneself who we are and improving on it or following in the way also, because you could have had an interest of not wanting to speak. You could have done the opposite. You could have become very quiet. Maybe you would have said, I'm going to write. Right, but something in you, there was a driver or something, there was a quest you had to bring out your experience. And I think it's not just the words you speak, you're also interested in other people very strongly, Thomas. You worked also with people very close and to improve them in their body, to become healthy so that they have a balanced lifestyle. And I think when we're younger and we're testing out things, there is already things that move us forward to become who we are. I was just thinking about recently, I studied landscape architecture. I don't do much of it anymore. But that love for nature I had already as a child. You were speaking about the freedom a lot. That's important for you, right? So people feel free. And the freedom of walking where we desire. And as a child, I did that, Thomas. I didn't like to walk following the straight line of a path, also in the woods. I would go off and still do that. But it's because the energy lines in the ground, they don't go straight. They have like a waving thingy, a way to go. You can see it how dogs walk or animals or children if you let them roam. They follow it because it's how we pick up energy and don't need to waste so much of that energy. And so I now, as a shaman healer, again, I work, I have a plant right next to me. So the interest and the awe for the beauty of the plants and nature stayed. Now I want to improve them in the natural state. And they give me now messages or help me, or right? They give me strengths.
Yeah.
And whatever. So there is something that we have as a child that is for you, I think, to the wise man who has the stories of wisdom to share, and it's independent if it's one-on-one. And bringing the best out of person in one, and you do the same. You give information to give the best now more and more to larger groups, right?
Yeah, definitely. So with what you mentioned with the plant, we have it's reciprocal relationship, right? We breathe out CO2, the plant, breathe out oxygen. It's reciprocal relationship. It's understanding that it's a give and take, right? The law of reciprocity. When you give, you receive, right? By me sharing my story, I'm helping to inspire others, right? And in turn, that might change their life and help them inspire others. So everything matters. Everything matters. And there are three things that actually drives me, right? The first one is inspiration. The second is transformation. And the third is impact. So whenever I'm in a conversation or I'm doing some type of business transaction, I always look for one of those three things, because when I'm doing one of those three things, I feel full. I feel full,
Oh,
you
that's a
know?
good point for
So
everyone.
it's so important. So you have to understand what fills you up. Because if you don't understand what fills you up, then you're going to be constantly chasing that next thing. And even though you're chasing that next thing, that void will be there forever. So once you understand what fills you up, then you're able to put yourself in that alignment.
That's sugar.
That's sugar right there. There you go.
Yeah, I hope everyone heard that. Really, to hone, to bring. We know shamanically, Thomas. We say we bring everything into one line. So our ideas, even clothing becomes important. We have to feel good in our second skin.
Look good, feel
what we
good.
eat, right? But even where do we sit on, so that these things align, that make us feel fuller.
Yeah.
With what do I surround myself? Where do I live, right? Is this my setting? The people, a medicine? So it is really, one brings everything into this one intentional line. That's why it's called intention line, because we decide what is best for us. We decide, or I decide, you decide, what do you desire? And it's time to not just wait for the environment to bring you everything, but also to say, I want that, I'm going to create that. What do I want to bring out of me? Like Thomas did, right? More of the speaking. I still mumble. I have I have that too, but no, I wanted to say a dyslexia, right? So with a dyslexia, and I think really fast, I never finish sentences and throw things about.
You understand?
And for the longest time, I went the opposite. I became very, very quiet, didn't speak.
Okay.
And so I said, no, now I want to speak. And if I mix up my two languages, because my dad's American, my mom is German, that's also okay. And if I have an accent, that's also okay, because that gives the flavoring of me, of my life experiences, right? Because if you think about it, the fun part, and it's really different in the US compared to here. In the US, a lot of people traveled from around the world and started a new life. So they're interested if they hear an accent, or they're interested in your background and culture. Here, people are a little bit more offended, and also people that come from other cultures then and live here, they pick up that defensiveness. I think that's sometimes a little sad. One day I wish.
Oh, really? Okay.
That that we don't feel offended when people ask questions, because I think it's becoming more and more not like pointing a finger, but it is more because people are curious. Really, they want to find out more, but sometimes they don't have the right way of asking, and that we become a little bit more patient with others, how they communicate. So even by generation, right? If you only hear a certain way of conversation, the vocabulary is different.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's the struggle between these, that we give older people a little bit more grace, open, often embrace, right? They have so much life, but they have a different way of still a little thinking and asking, and that's why. But that's important. Otherwise, there would be no change, right? And the youngsters come and they have a whole new way of living as well. Yeah, so I love that you're bringing this authenticity and transforming. Did you have that? I'm going to go back as a child. What interested you in transformation? I mean, that time probably you didn't think about the word transformation. I didn't either. But there was something of, did you want to make people feel good? Can you remember?
So as a child, yeah. So as a child, I always, like I said, I was very adventurous, and I was this child that had no fear, right? Anything that I saw and I wanted to experiment with, I would just go for it. And then my grandmother, when she saw my discovery, she would give me so much praise as if what I just showed her was the best thing in the world. And that would just increase my morale, right? And I would want to
Yes.
do more things to make my grandmother and my uncle, give them those praises. So I was always on that trajectory. I remember this one time during the Civil War, when we came back to my grandmother's compound, the place was a wreck, and my grandmother decided to farm her land, right? So my uncles they went and they started to create farms. And I went and I grabbed some seeds and I wanted to create my own garden. My first attempt was on an ant farm and I got bitten. It was, but I did not stop. I went further down, because my grandmother had a lot of property, and I decided to start over. And the plot of land that I chose was beautiful because it was swamp land, but it was very fertile soil. And the seeds that I planted germinated, and it actually grew. It produced. And my uncles, my cousin, my grandmother, they were so ecstatic, and they used to give me so many praises. Then when I saw my uncles grabbing the fruits of my labor to cook,
Oh,
I
yeah.
felt so happy. I'm like, yes, because I planted beans, I planted okra, I planted pepper, and we're actually eating my food, right? So
Wow.
being able to feel like you're part of something that you're contributing, and having your family members to give you that encouragement is so important. So I was granted that at an early age, right? At an
Oh,
early
you're lucky,
age.
man.
Yeah. But like I said, but then when I left Liberia, it was a completely different culture. So I had to kind of like re either refine myself and find who I was, because now I was in the state of, I would say, survival, because I was struggling with the culture,
I
right?
bet.
And also dealing with kids in school, then dealing with being with my father and my mother for like the not the first time, but understanding that these are my parents, right? So it was completely different compared to what I was used to. Because from having the freedom and being outdoors to being in a small apartment in Brooklyn and barely be able to go outside because it's cold now, right? So it was a completely different. Um, but like I said, as times went on, I decided to learn more about myself because I got out of that survival state, and then I picked up sports. And the same thing, I picked up sports, I became a solid athlete, and now that same feeling of encouragement, I was able to revisit it because now I'm one of the fastest on the team, or I'm one of the strongest on the team. So it was more of, I picked up from what I left off in a sense, you know. So, but like I said, it's all part of the journey. It's all part of the journey. It's all part of life. It's nurture versus nature, and they both play a tremendous role when it comes to nurturing a child, or nurturing a child to become an adult. So it's not just one thing, nature and nurture. Because I was nurtured by my grandmother, and nature also played a part, the environment.
Mm. It's so beautiful. Really, I was thinking while you were speaking, the nurturing. We were right when we started our conversation today, nurturing the moment, the person right in front of it. Too often we don't say what we love about the other person or what they've done that makes us feel good. So that they can feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think
That's
this
important.
nurturing, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and I invite everyone to do that more, to share what you sense when someone does something beautiful, and to find the words for it, to speak it out, or a tactile. I think that should also come much more back in to our world, right? That we become comfortable, because if you hug children, for example, we know that that's a healing touch.
It is.
They grow better, they're more intelligent, the freedom. But why do we stop when people get older? Yeah, we should keep that going, or friendships, and to make people feel heard as well, and they feel good to take your words, right? So these are really two things that will make us, I think it's like then we can exhale and relax into a situation, and we don't stay so tight. Right? In a way, you are similar to me in one way. We love to heal. Otherwise, your things would have not grown so beautifully, or people want to be in your presence.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that they feel good and can become themselves, and we see them for who they are.
And you know what, Meilin? You could definitely tell that this is so important because especially like living in the city, right? Like New York, New Jersey, where there's everyone is on the go, right? It's constant, movement. Everyone is doing their own thing. You could sense that tension, right? Especially walking through the streets of Manhattan, and when somebody bump into the next person, there's like that. Everyone's reactive. But compared to a place where, like, compared to like a small town where people are able to have conversation, share, shake each other's hands, hug each other, it's a completely different energy. There's a completely different energy, and I've been in both places, right? I've sensed, because I'm an empath and I feel things.
Ooh.
So I've been in both places, and I've been able to differentiate the energy of being in the big city and being in that hustle and bustle environment compared to being in a town or a small community where people are much more laid back. You could feel the difference. Just when a person walks in the room, you could feel the difference.
What they
energy doesn't lie. Energy does not lie.
No, and you can't change it. That's a nice thing.
You can't, exactly.
If it flows, whatever it flows. I've lived in New York when I was 12, and later in my life I went a few times back. I wish, though, that is also maybe why I share my wisdom, Thomas, so that we can relax independent, even if we're really tight, close together. If we see that we all belong together and are allowed to feel comfortable and invite the other to be themselves. Ooh, that's nice. If we always have intentionally, or we go through life, walk through life with that thought, or with that intention in our body, in our expressing, then the nice thing is our environment changes, and we can impact the villages, right? Our closer family, but also a huge city. And because I said, whenever I went into New York, I barely had someone growl at me or frown, or I always found laughter, or I was given gifts. I walked totally different through that city. So it's doable. So as an example, it's doable. Yeah. So, but how can? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, there's one of my favorite saying. It goes, as a man thinketh, so he becomes, right? So it all starts from your thought process. The way you look at life is how life is going to look at you, because we all look at the world through our perspective, through our learned behavior, our learned experiences, the things we've been going through, or our lack of information, right? So this is why two people could look at the exact same thing and still have different perspective and different way of interpreting what they're looking at. So this is why, grace is so important. Be able to give the next person grace, I believe, is so important, because everyone's not on the same page for the most part, right? We all live in this world, but we all have different experiences.
Yeah, and use them to teach and share and let others understand and become part of oneself.
Yes, indeed.
Right? This is oneness, so we can feel and see where we're so similar. That's my big wish, and I'm not going to give up. I'm keep on going for it.
You're right. You're right, because we're more similar than different, and that's the thing. And people tend to lean on the difference and not the similarities. We are more similar than different.
Yes.
If we're just to focus on that, it'll make things much better.
So Thomas, so beautiful. Time flies so fast speaking with you. But how can people reach you and learn from you and take you in or come closer to everyone? Because he won't mind if you give him a hug. He will take you in and
Definitely,
soak up, because that's so important. We can, as soon as we come together with a person, we synchronize. So we learn really quick if we open up and we synchronize with the person right in front of us or next to us. And Thomas, because you're so open and you're so built about sharing and making everyone feel good. So whoever comes into your surrounding will feel good. So sorry, how will they reach you and feel better?
Yeah, so you know what? I actually have a free gift for everyone. So if you go to free.getupandgetfit.com, so that's GETUPNGETFIT.com/free-gift, you'll get a gift from me. It's a series of emails that has a tons of positive resources. But you can also reach me via LinkedIn, right? Thomas Johnson. I know my name is very common, so you can just put in Get Up and Get Fit, and that should pop up. You can also reach me directly at getupandgetfit.com. Like I said, that's GETUPNGETFIT.com. And feel free to reach out. You know, I'm an executive wellness coach. I'm more about helping you to transform your life for the better. Because at the end of the day, it's about really feeling good. And how do you feel good? You have to be intentional. You have to work on your mind, your body, and your soul, right? You can work on your mind, your body, but if you don't work on your soul, then you're empty. So you have to work on your mind, body, and soul. So with my company, I'm able to help you guys, really, live a healthy lifestyle by being more intentional and focusing on correcting your negative habits. And like I said, I'm here to provide support. I love people, and this is my life calling, to help folks to transform their life for the better, and to just live on this earth, and just be, radiance for the most part, I would say.
Yes, and you have that so in you. And why I want to plug, you really have helped many people get into a harmony and balance in their life. In your, even in DC, you've been in one of the most important places. Everyone, he has been everywhere and touched people to really act on their sharpest, right? Because what you were speaking about, we need also our body, I think, especially now again, to also be fit and not to neglect it and find your own way. We don't have, and that's also important. What makes your body go be fit to hold energy longer, that we can hold this focus and this intention for longer, and that we can share with more of the world of us, right? So stay fit, eat well, relax, have sleep. Beautiful people like Thomas in your life. What else do you think could help them?
You're definitely right. So one thing I'm a huge advocate on is sleep, right? Being able to get enough sleep, but not only just enough sleep, but to be able to set your surroundings so it can help you sleep better, right? Most people don't really focus on the sleep, right? And it's so important. So your sleep, your nutrition, your thought process, your environment, your exposure to the sun or lack of, your posture, your fitness, your endurance, everything matters. Everything matters. So this is why I'm big on, help you to assess your life, to get a better understanding of what you're doing wrong, then be able to create a plan of action. Because at the end of the day, it's about, being intentional, because time is going to pass by. Time is one thing that's constant. Now it's up to you to be intentional, right? You have to be intentional in wanting to live a healthy lifestyle. So you could be better. You could be a better brother, a better sister, a better wife, a better mother in all aspects of your life. Not just one, but in all aspects of your life. And that takes having energy to also care for others. But oftentimes we're so depleted that we become reactive because we're so depleted. Now imagine if you're full mentally, physically, spiritually, then you'll be able to be the best you on a consistent basis, consistent basis, not just one day, but every day. And it's possible.
We have to have a whole brand new conversation just about feeling this fullness and all these tricks, because I was thinking you were talking just your rhythm was making dance. Being fit means you can dance yourself fit and don't it by yourself if you're solo in the living room. Or you can just stretch like a cat on a regular basis in the middle of the sun, right? There's so many ways to bring out what is about you. Oh, Mensch Thomas, yeah, thank you for all of these beautiful inspiration. For sure, the energy of we can change things. We can change also the way we are and improve it to impact others and ourselves. But many who are listening really also desire to bring their wisdom out into the world. And you've showed them we can if we practice and find our own way how to do it and to remember our purpose, right? You spoke about to align that and soak that in and remember that and bring that also out into the world. So Thomas, thank you very much for being on the podcast Moving to Oneness. All of your things will be in the notes. And everyone, you can touch Thomas directly or me, and I'll connect you and stay in tune. Ooh, that's beautiful. With yourself, play with the energies as Thomas did, and live your best and be fit and get fit using that. And join us on our Facebook Moving to Oneness group and share your experiences of how you are training yourself or improving yourself. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Thomas, and the best to everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.